It is a hump day morning. Good morning and welcome to SimWorld Today. I am Marsh, joined as we are every single Wednesday by the man, the myth, the charcoal legend, B. Ron Stradamus. Good morning, B. Ron. How are you?
Hey Marsh, good morning. It's good to be back here with you on SimWorld Today on the opposite side of the hosting chair for a change. Um, yeah, man, good to be here. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Before we do that, I gotta make sure my rock call outs are correct. Your background, are we talking charcoal? Are we talking obsidian? What are you cooking up back there?
I like Obsidian. Let's roll with
Okay.
that.
All right, Obsidian it is. We got plenty to get to, so let's dive right in. We had a doubleheader of NBA or SWBA Cup action last night. The Bucks and the Thunder both advanced. The Bucks sneak by a depleted Orlando Magic squad, and the Thunder dominate a Dallas Mavericks team. They're going to claim that they're depleted because they're without PJ Washington, but an otherwise healthy group. Bucks take it. Let's start there. Do you consider them to be the favorites to win it all right now?
No, right now I'm still rocking with the Thunder. They were my pick to win the main title at the end of the season. But now that they're this far into the in-season tournament championship, I'm gonna pick them to win this one too. They're still my favorite to win.
Well, look, I've got $5 that says a different team is going to win the SWBA Cup. But are they the favorites? Are the Bucks the favorites? No, they're not. Why? Because they barely snuck by an Orlando Magic team that was missing their two best players because apparently obliques in Orlando just do not go together with one another, as Franz Wagner is now out along with Paolo Banchero. Yesterday did not give me a vote of confidence about the Milwaukee Bucks. It did give me a vote of confidence about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are an absolute terror on defense, who are a offensive juggernaut. I don't know that I look at the Bucks team yesterday that beat the Magic and feel any type of confidence, B-Ron, that they can survive, but I think they could win the SWBA Cup for one reason and one reason only. I don't think the rest of the Eastern Conference, where it's going to either be Atlanta or New York, is especially intimidating. The Knicks have been better as of late, but they certainly haven't been great, and Atlanta's no easy one, too. So now Milwaukee just has to beat one of those two teams, and then they're going to get one of Oklahoma City, Houston, or Golden State. You make it to the championship game, you got a shot, but I don't think that they're making it there because they're the best team in the Eastern Conference as it relates to cup play.
Yeah, they'll probably be the best team in terms of being better on that day, if that makes sense. But once you get to the actual championship game for the cup itself, that's when I think you'll see one of those Western Conference teams between the Thunder, Warriors. You said Lakers were in there too?
No, the Rockets, the Warriors and
Rockets.
Rockets play tonight.
Warriors, Rockets, yeah. One of those teams is gonna take it.
Real quick, ahead of tonight's matchups, which is Atlanta, New York, Houston, Golden State, who do you like, and real quickly, why?
I'm gonna take Houston and the I'm sorry, Knicks.
Knicks Hawks. You're
Knicks,
taking the
yeah,
Knicks. I'm
yeah,
gonna go
Knicks.
Knicks. You're stabbing me in the heart there. I'm gonna go Golden State because I'm a homer. But I also like what they've been doing. They just beat Houston a couple days ago at home with no Steph Curry. I like what Golden State's been doing recently. Houston's defense, though, is absolutely disgusting. The big question mark for that team is who's going to score on offense, and they have not been able to answer that question. Let's move to more SWBA talk, and apparently the Miami Heat are open to moving Jimmy Butler, as reported by ESPN's Shams Charania, and conveniently listed in his list of teams, or listed in the article of potential teams, Houston, Dallas, of course, he is a Houston native from the state of Texas, and the Golden State Warriors, who have made no bones about their desire to get a star into that roster. Any best suitor, in your opinion, either those teams or another, B-Ron?
I really don't know, and I say that because of where Jimmy Butler is at this point in his career. He's what, 35 years old now? And I feel like he's on he's not the player he used to be. So I'm unsure right now as to where he fits in. and what he can kind of provide to either of those teams. But if I had to pick one of them right now, I for the storyline, Marsh, I'm gonna pick the Rockets, and that's kind of my really only reason for doing that storyline purposes. Guys going back to their hometown team, I think is always a good storyline to follow, and I think it'd be cool to see what Butler could do to provide some kind of spark for the Rockets.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Houston Rockets would make the most sense, and it's not just because it's from Texas, but it's because Houston needs, well, we just talked about, a playmaker. They've got a number of defenders on that roster that make you feel as if it's not a big deal if you don't get the best defensive version of, as you mentioned, B-Ron, a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler. He's not obviously going to be playing his defensive powers. Truthfully, if you look across the league, what am I looking for a Jimmy Butler landing spot? I'm looking for a team that has a handful of guys that are young, that can take the offensive mantle if needed, and that are good defenders. And that is the Houston Rockets. It's convenient that he's from Houston, but if I scope out the rest of, Miami's probably not going to try to send him to the Eastern Conference. That's a very Pat Riley thing to do, is to keep him away from where you are if you were to make it. And you start going through the list of Western Conference contenders. Oklahoma City, if they're going to cash in their chips, it's not going to be for a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler. We talked about Houston. Dallas, I struggle to see where the contract comes from for Dallas, so I would love to know where that money is. Golden State, I don't necessarily agree that would be the right decision, but I'm also got a ton of Jonathan Kuminga stock, so do with that information as you will. John Morant and the Grizzlies would just feel chaotic to me. Denver could certainly use the help, but I don't know that you're really getting that big of an upgrade. You'd probably have to include somebody like Michael Porter Jr. for contract purposes. We've gone 6 deep, and now you get into that group, B-Ron, of teams that are kind of like, oh, are we actually good? Are we really going to want to give Jimmy Butler a bunch of money? He's going to opt out after this season. Do we want to invest in that? Like, the Lakers are going to be the most obvious choice. I don't think that makes the Lakers that much better, but I really think there's a small number of teams right now that are, if again, this situation specific, that make a lot of sense for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, and that makes it more difficult to consider trade options too. When you look at it from our perspective, the teams are seeing one thing, and we're seeing some similar or something different. So from our perspective, it does make it difficult to put these trade thoughts out there into the ether, so to speak, and try to figure out what would be a good spot for Butler at his age. So maybe it is the Rockets, maybe it's somewhere else. But if he does get traded, I do think you're right. He needs to go to a young team where he can mentor the guys and help them grow into competent professional basketball players. I think that's also a good thing to look at too.
One that could be a spicy one would be San Antonio. You have already made the indication, if you're the Spurs, that you want to be competitive. That's why you went out and got Chris Paul this offseason. You've felt like with Victor Wembanyama, your road to a contention status starts a little bit earlier. If you had Jimmy Butler, I don't know that you suddenly become a top 4 team in the conference, but you become a heck of a lot better. I know that they have some of the draft picks from the DeJounte Murray trade with Atlanta when they sent him there, 2-3 seasons ago. I don't, off the top of my head, know what their contract status would be, because again, with the new luxury tax rules, the number of teams that are an option suddenly dwindle for those that are in the second apron, because you cannot aggregate contracts to make a deal work. A lot of the contenders right now are in the second apron, which is going to be a challenge. But if you're San Antonio, adding another veteran around Victor Wembanyama, who you have made the statement, we want veterans around this guy so he can know what it's like to play winning basketball. They're 12-12. They're a half game out of the 10 seed right now. Okay, they're chasing down Phoenix, Minnesota, and the Lakers. It's really not a bad spot if you're San Antonio. I think the ground is ripe for a pounce if I'm the Spurs and Jimmy Butler. And hey, you're going back to Texas. Let's move on to some SWLB action where the contracts continue to roll. And after the Yankees missed out on Soto, they make their claim for the lefty Max Fried for a little 8-year deal. B-Ron, I know you are our resident AL East expert, so hit us with the knowledge, please.
Yeah, so Max Fried is really good pitcher for the Braves last season. Two-time All-Star, 2.8 ERA over the past 5 seasons in Atlanta. So that's really good, and he's just ahead of Corbin Burns in that category as well. So I think that this is a solid get for the Yankees in terms of adding him to the one of the deep rotations in baseball. Already has Garrett Cole, Carlos Rondon, Luis Gil, Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez, and Marcus Stroman. I like this move for the Yankees, and I hate that I say that, but yeah, this is real good for them.
They had to. They had to use if they can't look, you come what 3 games away from a world championship. Part of that's because your center fielder doesn't know how to catch a baseball and at some points hit a baseball. Um, but if you can't beat teams, which you wanted to do, which was just bludgeon the ever loving crap out of them with Stanton, Judge, and Soto. Now that Soto's no longer an equation, the next best option, because there's not another big bat like that, is to just try to bludgeon teams with great pitching. And I thought in that Dodgers series, the Yankees did not have good pitching. I mean, the defining moment of this series is you're starting now. This is a little bit different. This wasn't throwing a pitch, but the defining moment was Garrett Cole pointing to first base as Mookie Betts races past him instead of covering. Now, that's obviously not the act of a pitcher 99% of the time, but if you can't win games with bats, which I'm not saying they can't, but Stanton and Judge have not proven to be reliable, consistent postseason contributors, adding a big arm, and Max Fried is certainly a big arm on an 8-year deal to that rotation that you mentioned that's already quite talented, but certainly needed a little bit more of a number one punch, that does it. And so I think the Yankees made the smart move. I think that if you were trying to predict things for the Yankees, this would have been the most obvious next chess move for them. Not spending a lot of money on Soto. Let's go get somebody else. Who's the next best player that's available? Do we need him? In this case, yeah, sort of. But that's not really how baseball works. Baseball does not work in terms of what do we need? Let's go get it. It's what's the best guy that we can possibly get? Let's go get that guy. And let's see what else we need after that, B-Ron.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too about baseball, March, is you mentioned the lineup that the Yankees had. Soto last season with Stanton and the powerful bats they had in the lineup. You can have all the bats you want, but if you don't have the pitching and the defense around
Yeah.
it, it's not going to matter because bats can and will go cold at various times, especially when you don't want them to go cold, which I think we saw a little bit of that in the World Series too. Because in general, like, it feels like the Yankees didn't really come to play in some respects in the World Series, uh, in some respects there. So if you can have pitching that's reliable, and and a guy like Max Fried on the mound in a Game 7 kind of scenario, I think you're in a better spot to be where you don't need to try to get your bats going late to make a big comeback down, 3, 5 runs, whatever it might be. Your pitching can
Yeah,
keep you in it and have you only down 2.
elite baseball players are, or at least baseball hitters, elite hitters are still in modern day baseball, a 73% failure rate. So even the best of them are going to fail 70% of the time. If you can get a guy that makes them fail 74%, 75%, Max Fried is the type of guy that can move that percentage point just one direction. To your point, is spot on. I don't care how many hitters you got. Baseball is a pitching game, and an elite pitcher beats an elite hitter 7 times out of 10. That is what it matters, and that really would have changed a lot of it, because where the Yankees fell apart was when their pitching could not get outs. And a Dodgers lineup that 1 through 6, I would say, was probably like you're concerned about 7, 8, 9. You're feeling, oh god, I don't like this matchup any better. It's pitching reigns supreme, even if baseball and home runs is all what the headlines want to show. All right, let's head to college basketball, where we thought we were going to get ourselves a nice top 10 almost matchup between Gonzaga and Georgia Tech. I picked Gonzaga at home because I thought, hey, this is a team that's been playing well, and I was mistaken, as Georgia Tech dominates in the second half. Mr. Zaza Gregorian, the Gregorian calendar. How about a 13, 16, 8, and 8 block performance? Don't look at his shooting percentage where he shot 41%, but golly, B-Run, this Georgia Tech team, we want to be infatuated with Duke. Oh, brother, this is a tough squad. 88-63 drubbing of Gonzaga on the road.
Yeah, so two parts is for me. I want to get this part out the way first. My Gonzaga hate watch. I enjoyed that last night. I enjoyed watching those guys go down like they did. Everybody knows I've never been a big Gonzaga guy for various reasons. One of them being because they played in the West Coast Conference. They were beating everybody. Now they're not, and now they're joining the Mountain West. They went up against an ACC opponent last night, and Georgia Tech really just dismantled them, Marsh. And a big part of that was due to Gregorian. And I want to add to Gregorian, this was his first start of the season because of the incident with Malik Duffin and Lorenzo Phenom got him suspended for 3 games. So he was coming in a big spot with high emotions already due to him making his first start. And he lived up to maybe even surpassed even what people had in mind for him in terms of expectations for him for that game last night. But Donta Walker also still did his thing. And this Georgia team, I think with Gregorian playing as well as he did last night, it might not be a consistent thing, but it does show that this Georgia Tech team is scary and has a very, very good chance to compete.
Their schedule coming up, Ohio State, looks like another Gonzaga matchup. UNLV, Syracuse. That's their schedule. They only have 1 game in January. That's the Syracuse game. Malik Duffin might not be coming back to a starting job. This was an impressive performance from Gregorian. I'm running with that, and you get a 3-game window to see what it's all about, and Malik Duffin might be coming back, coming off the bench, because I'm not going to be sitting a guy that's 13, 16, 8, and 8. Again, first start, we'll see what the follow-up act looks like. We've seen in SimWorld U this season plenty of big performances followed up with nothing, but Georgia Tech looks dangerous. They look intimidating. When 24 points from Donta Walker is not the lead story, when 22 points on 3 of 3 shooting from Jace Colson is not the lead story, that's a problem. And Georgia Tech is, without a doubt, a problem with just 1 loss on the season. All right, we got to wrap it up. So we're headed to the SimWorld U wrap-up. Roll the tape, sir producer, and let's get this party started. Things kicked off on broadcasting games with a St. Mary's Villanova matchup. St. Mary's, number 22 in the nation, maybe no longer. Villanova with an 89-79 win. 24 points from Justin Bell and big nights from Jamarius Lippman and Aaron Lovejoy. Double-double from Lovejoy with 13 rebounds in the 10-point win for the Wildcats. Moving right along, we go to Texas A&M and Richmond, a little defensive matchup. 16 second-half points from Richmond and a 55-44 win for the Texas A&M Aggies. 15-11 from Tyrell Marr to pace Texas A&M. They get to within 1 game of 500. Purdue versus Miami. Miami's woes continue. A 75-65 win for the Boilermakers to get to 500. Darius Player with 23 points leading the way for Purdue at home. Chugging right along, Colorado State, a 91-76 beating of Jackson State. So much for Jackson State being a contender in the American Conference, because 16-7-4 from Jaziel Wright Johnson is enough for the Rams in the win. California and Memphis, a top 25 matchup, defensive matchup. It's Memphis reigning supreme, 60-55. 13 points from Deontay Joyce to lead Memphis. California's Jason Tata led all scorers with 15. Oregon is getting hot, folks. 70-59 win, although I guess they're getting hot over Seton Hall squad that's now 3-11. Timothy Brown, 19-5. Lene Newman, 18-19. When the Ducks are rolling, the Ducks could be a contender. They're now 6-7 on the season. Washington State, Texas, number 5 Longhorns go on the road and get a big win over Wazoo, 92-73. A big night from Martha Lattimore, 27 points, 12 of 13 shooting. No answers from the Cougars for him. UNLV and Ole Miss went to it in Las Vegas, and it was a showdown. 80-78, UNLV gets the win. A big night from Nat Hawkins, 24 and 10, and how about 12 rebounds from Keontae Smith in a big, much-needed win for the Running Rebels. 19 apiece from Marcel Forte and Buggy Fruge for the Rebels. New Mexico and St. John's in the desert. St. John's did not go dry. 84-62 win for the Johnnies. Kashan Chip, 24 and 13 in the win. They are now 3 and 4. New Mexico preseason top 25, 2 and 3. All right, that's our show. We appreciate you, B-Rod, for coming in. Again, thank you for the time and effort that you put in the host chair. We appreciate all of that, and of course love seeing you on a Wednesday. Thank you all for tuning in here on a Wednesday as well. Broadcast of games roll back tonight again, 8 and 9:30 doubleheader on SimWorld TV. Make sure you're tuning in there. Of course, tomorrow is our SimWorld U game of the week. Creighton and Missouri going to battle in a non-conference slate down in Columbia. That's at 8 p.m. tomorrow night. All right, we're back here tomorrow morning on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.
This has been a presentation of SimWorld.